Up on this Monday. Gunner, 2 days left in February, today and tomorrow, and then we are into March. Can we escape? Can we have the great escape without the heavy snow and the nastiness and the sleet and all the other stuff that comes along with living in this part of the country? Is the question I have for you. Mute it.
I've been here 26 plus years. I would say every third or fourth winter, we have a winter where we get no snow that sticks on the ground, and praying this is one of those winters. Now, I've heard locally on the weather, hey, stay tuned because we're looking at patterns through March, and I turn the TV off immediately when I hear that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a possibility what we haven't gotten, we could still get in March, which is a possibility. But I am of the belief that we're going to miss the snow. Our buddy Jerry Hines, who was a photographer with us for NBC Sports Philadelphia, he lived and died by the Farmer's Almanac. And I used to love to rub it in his face every year when the Farmer's Almanac would say, this is going to be a harsh winter in Philadelphia, and we'd bypass all the snow. I'm going to tell you something, Rob. Like I said, I've been here over 26 years. I bought a snowblower in January of 2005, the year the Eagles went to the NFC Championship game against the Atlanta Falcons. In all honesty, Rob, I don't think I've used it. Wow. I don't think I've used it 12 times.
Since 05. Wow.
Since 05.
Really?
I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, even when we've had snow, Rob, we haven't had like the major snow like you guys got in 96 the year before I got here.
Oh, yeah, it was bad. Yep.
We've had decent snowfalls. I mean, in 05, I had to use it. My daughter used it. I was gone, had to cover the game. Beyond that, in all honesty, it's been snow you could shovel. We haven't had the real heavy wet snows.
Yeah, which is the hardest. Yeah.
And that's since 05, that's an 18-year span we're talking about here.
Yeah.
My snowblower still looks brand new, to be honest. Which is crazy.
I always worry when we don't get anything that March and April are going to be nasty. Now, who knows? I don't know that that's the case. I haven't seen anything. I agree. Look, but the fact that we're almost here, man, is pretty wild, man. And we may just have a clean getaway. That would be beautiful.
You know what though? Here's what's weird. And I sent my family a picture of this. This was like last Thursday or so. The day it jumped up to 72, 73 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
My rose bushes are already blooming. You see green buds on a rose bush. I mean, bugs are out.
Oh yeah.
Bushes are it's like the ecosystem is all messed up.
It is.
Mother Nature's got everything messed up, which I don't mind. When I see to me, when I start seeing my plants and stuff start to bud just a little bit, that's a sign of better things to come.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm shocked. I just planted these rose bushes like last maybe October.
Yeah.
And and they're blooming already again. And I'm like, wow, I can't wait now. I'm excited. 2 days left in February. You can not even 2 full days because tomorrow's the last day.
All right. Yeah, we have a day and a half, whatever, whatever it is.
And I'm disappointed because you didn't give me the exact hours of how much time we have left in February. I'm extremely disappointed. You let me down today.
Okay. Let me do fast math here. So we have 30, 24, 30, and 35, 35 hours and 24 minutes and change. Something like that, man. I don't know. It's the best I could do.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So the beauty of March is March Madness, which is great. It means we're just on the cusp of Major League Baseball starting, usually the end of March or early April. We're really close to the draft, which is always, I always have fun with. And we're just about into the NBA playoffs once we get to April. So it's a cool time of year. I like March.
I love March. Yeah, because the weather's starting to get a little bit warmer. And there's that eternal hope that it's going to be warmer more days than it's going to be colder. And that's been a trend in this region since I've been here. Is like once you get like to that second, third week of March, and then weather's consistently like in the 50s, high 50s, low 60s. You get a 70-degree day in there. It doesn't drop down to like the 20s, 30s, or the 40s.
Right.
and it's here. I can handle it now.
Yeah.
January and February to me are the most depressing months in this region. It's cold, it's rain, and we got a lot of rain this year. You know, we missed a lot of them. There was that major. You see, it was snowing in Southern California over the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we missed a lot.
Oh,
of
like nasty too, by the way.
Yes. We missed a lot of, you know, I would get reports from my family in Milwaukee all the time. They just got hit by another snowstorm last week. You know, Buffalo got slammed twice. The upper Midwest Peninsula gets slammed because they're close to the Canadian border, and they get that lake effect snow as well. We missed all that, man. So, you know, I can live. This is a year I can live with my brother rubbing it in Arizona, how nice it is out there compared to where it is where I am right now.
Well, that's the thing too about, and I saw some of the stuff in Southern California. It was nasty. They have no idea how to handle it. Like their infrastructure isn't prepared for it. Their road crews aren't prepared for it. The people aren't prepared for it. They don't have shovels. They're not, you know, they don't even all have winter coats. And there's not enough rock salt, you know, and getting around, you know, and getting around that area is terrible to begin with. The traffic's brutal on a perfect day. Can you imagine what it's like if they get some snow or sleet or wet weather like that?
It's like Georgia and Texas when they get those freak snowfalls, even if it's only like 2, 3, 4 inches, people lose their minds because, like you said, they're not prepared for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they just have to weather the storm. You know, and you see people slipping and sliding, and you know, you figure, wait a minute, it's not that bad here. For us, being on 3 or 4 inches of snow is like being on dry ground here. I mean, because we know how to deal with it, but
yes,
still, it's just amazing. We had to cover a game one time in Atlanta, and it was like a freezing rain. And we all, you know, when you cover games at certain times of the day, you automatically know what time you're going to leave to get to the stadium in X amount of time to park, get your position for pregame show, get your other position for the postgame show outside the locker room. And because Atlanta, people were losing, it was wet, it was like freezing, but it wasn't like frozen solid.
right.
People were going off in ditches and stuff. We had to leave like 45 minutes early just to be on the safe side, earlier than normal, to be on the safe side, because we weren't worried about, you know, because all of us are from this region.
Right.
We weren't worried about us driving that in that kind of weather because we always had big SUVs. We were more worried about being defensive drivers and have somebody slide into you.
Everybody else, yeah.
Oh, yes, you know, so.
It's true, man. And it's, I told you, it was right around a year ago today. I was in Arizona for some business, and it was like rainy and sleety. It was crazy cold. It was in like the low 40s. Overnight, it was in the 30s, right? And I had to get a cab from the airport to where I was, you know, my destination, and guy didn't know how to drive in it. Like I was literally at one point like, dude, you want me to take this thing over? He was a mess. The guy was a mess. And I wasn't trying to be, you know, a creep to him. He was just, he was really, and he was kind of like, he had thought about it for a minute because he's like, I'm sorry, I'm just not used to this. I'm like, okay.
Well, I mean, if you grew up your whole life out there,
yeah,
and you see a freak, you know, weather pattern like that, I mean, you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
They don't teach you out there. Hey, if your wheels turn this way, you turn it this way so you don't fishtail, stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's no reason to. I mean, it's guess, but you're sitting in the back seat. Lord, don't let this be the day.
I'm telling you, man. I literally was like, I'm thinking about just getting out somewhere and, you know, getting an Uber, you know, but.
And think about this, Rob. Yeah. You just said a year ago. Think about how quickly a year is gone. You're talking about a year ago at this time, you were in Arizona on another assignment.
Yeah.
And think about that. How quickly this year has passed, dude. What we've done in the past year.
We're coming up on our show, our anniversary of our a year anniversary for our Sports Take show is April 18th. We're like almost there. And it feels like it was just yesterday we cracked this bad boy open, man. We broke the seal. So it is, you're right. That's one of those things, like when you're a kid, your days feel like eternities in some way. You know, and you're playing, you don't have worries, you're not scrambling, you're kind of doing whatever. When you become an adult and you're really like in the grind of it, man, it's like hyper speed. It is so fast how quick it goes.
And dude, I mean, hopefully you'll get to experience this. It's amazing how when you have other entities that figure into your equation, I'm talking about grandkids now, helping out with grandkids, babysitting with grandkids. You're still trying to do things like, I mean, I got to paint the woodwork. I got to do this. It just makes your day go that much faster. And because we have this show now, you know, like you work on the show in the morning, I work on the show at night. I'd rather, I don't get to breathe until everybody goes to bed.
Yeah, that's your downtime. We finally, once they're all asleep, that's when you can kind of.
Yep, I got a movie on the TV. I'm on my computer going over all the topics. So because I'm anticipating, knowing you well enough, I'm anticipating. I can always come up with at least 6, 7 topics.
Yeah, you're great with that. The
alternatives
alternatives
that you're going to talk to.
But you know how to jump off onto things too, which is great.
Yeah, and there's the 2 givens. Here's what this is what I love to do. There's the 2 givens. We're going to do birthdays and movies. So before I even look at sports.
Is that your first move?
I'm telling you, every night my wife is like, why are you looking at pictures of entertainers?
Yeah.
Because I've got to get these birthdays.
That's funny.
And she starts laughing, That's the first thing I do because I'll have a list. 20, 25 different birthdays. And some of them I delete because
they're just not big enough names or it's kind of the fringe. I know. I do the same thing. It's funny. We were doing the same thing. That's for sure. All right. So let's hit a couple things here. Eagle wise, Gunner, because I think, look, as we mentioned off the top, they're in a weird spot. It's a good problem to have. They've had a short off season because it was such an unbelievable run, but it's doubly complicated really for 2 reasons. One, because you need 2 coordinators, which is rare. It's rare you lose both, but they did. So they're in search of a coordinator. And then the other piece of that is you have to sign Jalen Hurts at some point. Now, he has another year in his contract, which I would lead people to believe, what's the big deal? You don't need to be in a rush with this. Yes, you do when you live in a salary cap world like the Eagles are in. Jalen Hurts, whatever happens there is going to dictate where you're going in your other spots. All right, can we afford Javon Hargrave? Can we afford Bradbury? Can we, fill in the blank, whatever player you want to talk about here, if we're paying Jalen $50 a year or whatever it is, that all these things tie in. They're bonded between each other.
I will add this again. As much as Jalen is the consummate team guy, this is a huge financial decision for a 24-year-old young man. And he might be holding them ransom right now in terms of, I'm not rushing into this thing, which puts them even further behind the 8 ball because it's going to affect how they go after certain people, And I don't blame Jalen one bit for him and his representation for strategically taking a turtle's pace through this, more so than being the Energizer Bunny and let's get this done. Let's just get to what we can to get. No, this is an unbelievable position for him to be in because let's face it, as good as he is, Rob, we don't know what his body is, if his body's going to hold up, whether it's a 3, 4, 5-year contract. We don't know if his body's going to hold up. So as of right now, he is a phenomenal athlete, a tough athlete. But we also know that an athlete that likes to take off and run is more susceptible to wearing down sooner rather than later. Mm-hmm. I have no problem with Jalen taking the approach because of what I've told you guys time and time again. When the NFL basically is a commodity market. You buy, sell, and trade, basically. They talk about loyalty. Well, what about sometimes your loyalty to a player is not as great as you want that player's loyalty to be to you?
True.
So if I can get and if I'm Jalen Hurts and I'm sitting there saying, Kyler Murray is worth this, Deshaun Watson is worth this, we don't even know what Lamar Jackson is going to get, why should I rush into this thing? Why should I? I mean, our fan base wants this done now so we can move on.
I agree with you.
But you're going to have to sit and wait. You know what? If I'm in Jalen Hurts' shoes, I'm not rushing into anything.
Yeah, Derek, I'm with you, man. And I think the Eagles are really hurt. Every team, it's not just the Eagles. Any team that isn't the Cardinals and the Browns is really hurt or are really hurt by those 2 contracts. They just are. They reset the market.
Yeah.
Not in a positive way. I mean, great for the players, good for them, but not in a positive way, man. And I think that it could complicate things. Like if the Browns hadn't done that insane deal with Deshaun Watson and Kyler Murray hadn't been way overpaid in the desert, they might be close to having something done with Jalen by now. But because of that, this thing is very complicated, man. And look, it may be as simple as Jalen's just built a little bit different. And he says, man, give me $50 million a year for 4 years and we'll figure it out afterwards and let's roll. Maybe, I don't know.
Mhm.
But if I'm him, like you said, I'm not doing that. Why should I do that?
No.
I've gotten you to a Super Bowl in my 3rd year.
Yes.
I improved as a passer unbelievably. I'm a leader, unlike the last guy that you gave a massive contract to. I'm a real leader. The guys follow me in this locker room. You know, I was runner up for the MVP. He could this all couldn't have hit better for him.
I am everything as a leader, both on and off the field, that Carson Wentz was not.
Exactly.
Plain and simple.
Yeah.
I'm everything you wanted. I am not going to get in trouble. I am not going to cause controversy. I'm everything you want as the face of your organization at the tender age of 24. In my 2nd year as a starter in the Professional Football League, I led this team to a Super Bowl. Had it not been for the fact I missed 2 games, I might have been the MVP of the league as well. Now we both believe on equal playing surface the way Jalen played his season out, Patrick Mahomes was still going to win the MVP.
I agree with you. 100%.
It would have been a much closer race, but Patrick Mahomes was going to win that MVP.
And I don't have a problem with that,
I don't either. But but still, even with that said, I missed 2 games. I still finished 2nd in the MVP running.
Yep.
At 24 years old. What am I worth to you? Has Kyler Murray ever emerged as the MVP? Has Deshaun Watson ever emerged as the legitimate MVP? What am I worth to this organization?
And where are the playoff games for either one of those 2 guys? Where is it? He's taking his team to a Super Bowl. You know,
now they're both
played great in the Super Bowl, by the way, other than one mistake.
Outplayed the regular season and Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah.
What else do you want from me?
Yeah. So that's the problem. Like, how do you? So here's the follow-up off of that. So if you can't get anything done now, the next couple of months, what do you do if you're Howie? And how do you approach this thing with the guys who are going to get paid in a big way? Like, it's one thing, you can get Epps done, you can get Edwards done, in my opinion, but I'm talking Hargrave and Bradbury and, even a guy like Brandon Graham. Like, how do you go about this thing with those guys with the uncertainty of Hurts' contract?
Oh, there's no question about it. There's no question about it. But see, here's the thing is, this didn't catch Howie off guard. He planned for this back in September. There's a possibility he could get to this point.
Right.
I guarantee you, and I don't know for sure, I'm just saying how I know how the Eagles like to run their business. This is my perspective. Howie and Jalen Hurts' representation had some introductory discussions during the season about numbers. And they probably say, you know what, let's talk more about, let's get through this incredible season. Let's start talking after the season is over. Yep. Talks have picked up, but they're both handcuffing each other because Howie doesn't know exactly how much money he has to play with, or if he gives Jalen the bank, how it's going to affect him putting a decent defense on the field. People are already talking about Eagles' defense is going to be trash. I don't think it's going to be trash. Yeah. I don't think it's going to be what it was in 2022. That was an anomaly.
Right.
Okay. It's very seldom you're going to see a team loaded like that. 8 Pro Bowlers, 17 players that are either Pro Bowlers or Pro Bowl alternates. That just doesn't happen year in and year out.
Right.
So how he prepared for this, he knew what's coming, but yet they still have an offense intact. His offense is structured intact right now to where they can do some serious damage and win a lot more games than they lose in 2020.
I think you make a great point. All right, let's say your sack total goes down 7 or something like that. Okay. I mean, you still lap the field in a big way. That's still a heck of a lot of sacks that you're bringing back to this team.
Yep.
Okay. Let's say, you're not quite as dominant on that side of the ball. Okay. I mean, like you said, especially if Kelsey comes back.
Yeah.
Let's say you only lose Isaac Seumalo on that side of the ball and you plug in Cam Jurgens, who I think is going to be just fine. You're basically running it back, with 2 stud receivers, a phenomenal tight end, an MVP type quarterback, and an excellent offensive line. You're going to, and he's going to just get better. Jalen's just getting better. So is Devontae Smith.
Yes.
So you're going to be really good offensively. Yes. Defensively, are you going to take a little bit of a hit? Yes, you are. But you're right. That's the thing. You have to put it in perspective. Last year was an anomaly to have that kind of talent on that side of the ball. And they knew it. The Eagles, look, all this stuff we're saying, the front office knows, like, this was crazy. It worked out for a year. It's a shame we didn't win it, but it's going to be hard to run that thing back. They know that. They know that. You know, which leads to the question, Derek, do you just, is your draft all about defense? Or do you say, man, we're going to keep loading up on offense and we're just going to outgun them, man. Let's go.
If it was me, I would load up on defense the way Dallas did a few years ago when they used their first 6 picks in the draft to take defense. Now, Dallas, even at that time, had a decent offense. I mean, but it wasn't to the level of the Eagles' offense.
Yeah.
They didn't have 2,000-yard receivers and a 1,000-yard rusher. But their defense had to get younger to get better, and it did. And a lot of those players, well, not a lot, but a number of those players they drafted are not with the team anymore. It just didn't pan out. Mm-hmm. Or the fact that because they gave Dak that money, they couldn't keep some of the young players that I mean, look at Byron Jones. You know, I don't think Byron Jones was a part of that draft, but Byron Jones leaves Dallas and gets $82 million. Was he worth $82 million?
We were talking about this pre-show in our pre-show meeting.
Really?
Like, yeah, because when we'll talk about it, look at it a little bit more later. He might be done. It was a weird, not weird, but the way he laid out this Instagram post, it made it sound like he wasn't going to play anymore, but he's not officially retired. He can't run and jump and all this other stuff. But then in the story, the body of the story, you're looking at the contract deals of what Miami paid him. Like, woof.
Why?
Woof.
I mean,
he's
why?
solid, but he's not.
No,
he's not that kind of money.
No. We're not talking about a so-called shutdown corner. No. We're talking about a smart corner, a guy who plays physical, but not this so-called shutdown corner. But see, again, when you do stuff like that, you blow up the market. When other teams come calling for good cornerbacks, you blow up the market. Because the first thing I'm thinking is, wait a minute, you look at what they paid Byron Jones. My numbers are better than him. What am I worth? You know what? And I don't blame the players because of what they've had to go through over the last 2 negotiations, CBA negotiations in particular, to get what they get, and they're still not 100% happy with it because the owners have not been totally honest in terms of how much money the league is making, player benefits for players after they're done, things of this nature. I don't blame a player one bit for not trusting teams in general across the board. I want to get what I can. Based on my numbers compared to what this guy's getting, I should be paid what he's getting.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
I know. And you know, that's the double-edged sword of having a phenomenal team where almost everybody had a career year.
Unbelievable. Yes.
Because a lot of these guys hit it in the perfect time because they're free agents. Bradbury was coming off, you know, kind of what is he at this point, you know, with the Giants? And then he came here and played great. Brandon Graham, 34 years old, coming off an Achilles. Oh, is it just a nice little story? He's going to get back out there and play. No, he got double-digit sacks. Javon Hargrave, is he starting to get to that point at 30-ish where he's on the downside? Nope. Not even close.
Nope.
That's just to name a few. We haven't even gotten into the other guys. CJ, you know, bet on himself, won it out in New Orleans, comes here on the last year of the deal, goes to a new position in the pros at least, and plays spectacularly, where he's going to be the highest paid safety in the market. So, but you benefited from that because those guys played great all year. But now you're paying for it on this side.
Yeah. And that's why it hurts even more so that this team came up 3 points short in the Super Bowl. Because now you the glass of champagne, was half full.
It's a little flat.
Now it's a little flat right now, you know? Now, who knows? When we stack the Eagles team, even as we look at it right now, against the rest of the NFC, they're still in a very good position to get back to the NFC Championship game. I have never seen the NFC this mediocre in all my life, to be honest with you.
Especially at the quarterback position.
Especially at the quarter. You're right. But look at the wealth, not just the quarterback position. I think the closest challenger to the Eagles, as I'm looking ahead to 2023, is the 49ers, and yet they don't have a quarterback. They have a quarterback dilemma right now.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take very long to run through this, and just real quick, go to the NFC East. I don't know. Prescott turned it into a turnover machine, including pick sixes all over the place. I'm not sold on Daniel Jones. Sam Howell's the starter in Washington. Kirk Cousins is great until it really has to matter. Goff was improved, but I'm not in fear of him. Aaron Rodgers may not even stay in Green Bay. Justin Fields doesn't have enough help, at least right now. He can run around, and we know that unbelievably, but does he have enough weapons to throw to? Tampa doesn't have a quarterback. Carolina doesn't have a quarterback. New Orleans doesn't have a quarterback. Atlanta's got Desmond Ridder. We don't know what that is yet. 49ers are depending on two guys coming back from injuries who are really unproven in a lot of ways. Geno, props to him, but ultimately he doesn't scare you. And then it's the Rams and the Cardinals with an injured Stafford and Kyler Murray. That's weak, man. Okay, so then you just compare it to the AFC. You're going, even though he had a bit of a down year, you have Josh Allen in the East. You have Tua if he's healthy. Yeah, we'll see. Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, assuming he's coming back there. Pickett, who started to come on, not a fear factor guy yet, but still. A full year of Deshaun Watson, what that looks like, I don't know yet, but we know he can play, everything else aside. Trevor Lawrence, like Mahomes, obviously, Justin Herbert, and then if Russell Wilson resurrects himself. The point is there's way more on that side, way more.
Every team in the AFC except Indianapolis, Houston, and who else am I looking at here?
You talk about that you don't know what their quarterback setup is,
right?
Every team in
Vegas,
AFC. I'd say Vegas
and Vegas. So three out of 16.
Yeah,
3 out of 16 teams have uncertainties in their quarterback situation. And you look over the NFC, my goodness, Washington 1, Chicago, they don't have any. Tampa Bay, Carolina, Saints, Atlanta, San Francisco, and even the teams that have frontline quarterbacks. Daniel Jones doesn't wow me. Okay. Justin Fields is a phenomenal talent, doesn't have enough weapons around him. Tampa Bay, let's see who else. New Orleans has the weapons. Atlanta, we don't know what the young kid is like in Atlanta. Kyler Murray, we don't know if he's going to come back. We don't know when he's going to be back, to be honest with you.
And Derek, when he comes back, what is it? What does that look like?
Exactly.
Hey, let me give you a little update real quick here while we're on this Eagles thing. Glenn Schumann, who was the defensive coordinator with Georgia, did interview with the Eagles for the DC job, but has decided to return to Georgia. Sources tell ESPN.
All right, so
Schumann was out. He was the co-defensive coordinator and called the plays last year for the two-time defending champions. We know Georgia, how dominant they've been. So he's going back. So he is out of the mix. So
So the talent pool has whittled down tremendously. First of all, the Eagles lost out on having a surplus of candidates because they went deep into the playoffs. So obviously that cost them. And 3 potential candidates bowed out for various reasons. Joseph decided he wanted to go work with Sean Payton. I understand that.
Right.
Jim Leonard says, not the situation. Georgia is one of the creme de la cremes in college football. Matter of fact, last couple of years, Georgia has surpassed Alabama as the premier football team in college football now.
Yeah. I'm sure he's getting a nice little bump to stay there in Georgia too.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you? I mean,
if
you're the king in a small pond, and Georgia's not a small pond, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Compared to making a jump to the NFL and in untested waters, why would I not stay where I am?
Here's the other good thing. Like when you have something like that, like you have, Kirby Smart there and you're winning, and now it's becoming like an assembly line with recruiting. You've got some nice job security for a while, man.
Woo!
You make that leap, to the NFL, and who knows what happens. And I get it. Like some guys aspire, they always wanted to be NFL coaches, and they want to keep climbing. And I get it, but I don't blame this guy one bit for going back to that situation. It's not like he's going back to some school where it's a disaster and you're not sure what holds, what tomorrow holds. He's going to a good spot.
Well, not only that, but and I don't know if Schumann is married. I'm assuming he is, but the spouse has say in the equation as well.
Absolutely.
I mean, think about it. I mean, I'm looking at it from my perspective. Even after I got here, I had opportunities to go to Dallas, Miami, and if I was single, I probably would have jumped at the opportunity just to go to those markets and cover sports. But my wife's, I don't want to go to Miami. I don't want to deal with the humidity.
Right.
That was out.
Right.
Dallas, she didn't want to go to Dallas. I even tried to use the angle, hey, look, but you're that much closer to your home in California. So much shorter flight, much cheaper flight to get home to California. I don't want to go to Dallas. That was out. So, you know, when you look at a coach's resume, and I'm talking about the college ranks as well as the pro ranks, look at how many different stops they've made in their careers to get to where they are. And you're talking about a wife, kids, constantly relocating. If you're making good money at one of the premier programs in all of America, and your family's acclimated to that community, maybe his kids were already born in that area. Yeah. Your wife has tapped into the community, whether it's job-wise, community service, church, whatever the case may be. There's something to be said. Now, if you're a lower tier assistant, you want to move up because you want to make that money. You want to make that money for your family, build that nest egg. But if you're at a point other than being a head coach, if you're a coordinator at Alabama, LSU, Florida State, Georgia, one of those programs, it's hard to leave, man. And you're having success. Yeah, it's so hard to leave.
Yep. And look, timing's everything, you know, and it doesn't mean the Eagles would have wanted him either. You know, who knows? Sometimes these guys also, I'm not saying that's the case with this guy at all, but sometimes what happens is you really don't have intent of taking a gig, but it's leverage for you to say, hey, I could make that leap, boys, pony up. And that happens a lot in these situations.
That's when you find out how much you're respected where you are.
Yeah.
If somebody says, oh, hold up. No, we don't want you to leave. Here's what we'll do for you.
Right.
That's when you find how much you're respected in an organization. Mm-hmm. Interesting. So now from what we know, the Eagles candidates are Desai and Denard Wilson.
And Minter and Shula.
And Minter.
All those guys still. So Vance Joseph out, Jim Leonard out.
Yep.
Schumann out.
Yep.
That's it, right? Those three are out.
Those are out. Yep.
So Denard Wilson, Chris Shula, Minter, Desai, those four that we know of are still in the mix, at least. That's all we are hearing. Doesn't mean that's all we're on. But you would think we're getting towards an urgency portion of the program here with the combine starting up tomorrow. You would think. You
have to.
Yeah, you would think.
Yeah. And here's another thing also. We're talking about how Howie is going to, bob and weave his way through this offseason in terms of who he can and cannot sign. I just saw a story that came out that said the Chicago Bears have been approached by multiple teams about that number 1 pick.
Yes.
And there's a possibility they're not going after a quarterback, so they may trade down to get multiple first-round picks. Mm-hmm. Are the Eagles a player?
Yeah, that's the beauty of sitting there at 10. When you're sitting there at 10, you can do a lot of things. And I know we normally look at it like Howie may trade back, and get a either later first rounder, and maybe he moves out of 30 and goes into the second. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
But if there's a corner that you love, if you think the next Sauce Gardner's coming out, right? And you say to yourself, ooh, I need to get to 6 or whatever. You could do some maneuvering here.
Yeah. And Howie will wheel and deal. We see him do it. If there's the next J.J. Watt, Reggie White, one of those guys coming out in this draft, everybody's just drooling over this Georgia defensive tackle, Jalen Carter. If he's the next great one, do you want to miss out on that opportunity?
And you could put him with his guy who he played with.
Oh my goodness!
2 years ago in Jordan Davis.
Oh my goodness!
And Nakobe Dean's behind them. You're just bringing the band back. Here's what we know: Howie does not sit still. So if you think he's going to stay there at 10-30, and have his second round and third round, and then nothing till the 7th, you're crazy. We know his history is not that he's going to stay pat.
Yeah. And that number 10 pick, you can do a lot of great things.
Oh,
so what if Chicago got, they don't need a quarterback. I think they're still, I'm 99% sure they're still in on Justin Fields after what he did for them last year with no help. You need to get him outside pieces. That's what you have to do. You can drop down to 10 and get you a premier receiver, or anything, a solid offensive lineman. If I was them, I would do what Cincinnati did. You brought in Burrow, and then you went out and got his buddy. If I'm Chicago, if I'm doing that, I'm getting the elite of the elite in wide receivers with that first pick in my draft. If I'm dropping down in the draft and getting multiple picks, And who's to say they're just going to trade? They're going to trade spots. If I'm Chicago, I want a first and a second. You want the number 1 overall pick? I want at least a first and a second.
Yeah.
And depending on where your second pick is, if it's a high second round pick, we got a deal. If it's lower, I don't know. What else you got for me?
Derek, what do you think, though, just by nature of the position? Like, if you're doing that, if you're a team that's trying to get up to 1, you must be in love with one of these quarterbacks. Because let's face it, you're not moving up to 1 to take Jalen Carter if you're a team. You're just not. I mean, and as much as you need good defense and all that, you're making that kind of extreme move if you love one of the quarterbacks. You have.
But we're talking about Howie Roseman here. We're talking about a guy who constantly leaves us with our mouths hanging open in terms of what he might do in wheeling and dealing. I mean, who would have thought he could have got A.J. Brown last year?
I agree.
That's the last thing I'm thinking about. Is he going to find a way to get A.J. Brown? You know, Howie, that's one thing I love about Howie. We're going to sit here, like everybody else in the market and across the country, we're going to sit here and analyze everything we think he's going to do between now and the draft, and he's going to do something that we didn't even think about.
I agree.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I agree. That's part of the fun with him. It's rarely ever boring. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes they don't all hit, but he has certainly been hotter the last couple of years. Although the weird part, and this doesn't mean it's not working. It's just weird.
Right.
We don't know about last year's draft yet because none of those guys were depended on. They just didn't play, so we don't know.
But it's a nice luxury to have when you have a surplus of kids to look at. When you knew you went all in for this one moment of glory, it fell just 3 points short, that you don't have to go and scramble to try to fill the cupboard again.
Right.
You have strategic pieces in place already that are going to have to step up, and then you fill it back in at a much cheaper rate. That's a huge help in terms of moving forward. Now, again, we can't emphasize enough because we know how people are going to get. We know what's going to happen in terms of trying to compare this year's defense to last year's defense, whoever, and this year's coordinator to last year's coordinator. That's just the nature of the beast. But when you already have the cupboard half stocked in terms of ways you could go, it may not look as glamorous as it did, but it will look steady. It can look steady for you in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You know, I chuckled initially when Barrett made that comment weeks ago about, here's your starters on defense right now. But a number of those guys could be your starters on defense in 2023. I
know. It's most likely going to head that way because you're going to there's too many voids that have to be filled. Look, they know, by the way, they know better than anybody else from watching them at practice every day, from watching them in camp last year, who can play and who can't, at least have an idea.
Absolutely.
So the direction they go in the draft, if you watch them load up, I don't know if they take a linebacker relatively high, which isn't usually their MO, but if they do, it tells you maybe they don't love Jakobi D as an every down linebacker. If they, it really just depends. Like if you lose Bradbury, you're gonna have to look at corner. If you lose CJ Gardner-Johnson, you're gonna have to look at safety at some point. If you lose Brandon Graham, you're gonna have to look at edge rusher. Just are. A lot of this is piggybacking on. Some of it is best value, whoever's sitting there, but some of it is, as much as they don't want to ever admit this kind of stuff, you do pick for need to an extent. You don't want to overstretch yourself sometimes with that notion. And if there's some great guy who falls to you, so be it. But generally, you're looking at positions of need for you to an extent.
And those of us who think it's a foregone conclusion that they're just going to sign CJ, I think we're sadly mistaken in that regard. It is a priority. I think that is consensus across the board that when you start to try to attack your own players, but if he's making upwards of $70 million, if somebody gives him upward of $70 million, can the Eagles afford that?
No.
Can you afford to give that one player other than your quarterback $70 million when you got so many gaping holes to look at?
Yeah, Derek, the short answer is you can't. You can't afford. Like, that's the other part. Like, we all want Bradbury back, but are you going to pay two corners that kind of money if Slay's still here?
No.
You're just not. The reality of the situation is you're not. And I love Hargrave, but if somebody is willing to hand Hargrave at 30 at the defensive tackle position $20 million, sorry, that's too rich for my blood.
And like I said, Rob, and I gave you guys a little insight last week.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised if the Eagles try to use Slay as trade bait also to get out from under his contract. You may be looking at 2 new starting corners in 2023.
That's pretty wild. Look, I don't doubt
about it.
Yeah. But
to garner more picks.
Yeah.
to try to fill the cupboards with young players, the Eagles may have to go through some growing pains defensively this year.
Right. Yeah. I think we all have to take that into account, that it's just going to be it's not going to look like it looked last year on defense. Now, you should expect the same or a higher level of offense.
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely fair.
Mm-hmm.
The defense is going to take a little bit of a step back. Hopefully you enhance your special teams, and that helps you a little bit more. And your offense is that much better where you can live with a little bit of a dip defensively. So, all right, good stuff. Good stuff. We'll keep talking about the NFL. We're gonna hit the NFL hard at 2:00, and we'll incorporate some of this stuff in there. So, again, the coordinator from Georgia, University of Georgia, is out. He's out of the mix. Vance Joseph's out of the mix. Jim Leonard's out of the mix. So, we're down to the other candidates who they have talked to. That includes Sean Desai, who they're supposed to be talking to today in person. All right, so that's kind of where we're at with all of that. We come back. We'll talk a little Sixers, Derek. We touched on it in the first segment, but tough loss to the Celtics. Just kind of gauging where they're at right now. And again, they're in a really hard part of the schedule. The winning percentage for the teams that they play over the course of tonight and then into March is 57% as a winning percentage.
Yeah.
So they're playing good teams, and it's a lot. There's back-to-backs involved. There's not a lot of nights off. You got to hope the guys don't hit walls here. So we'll get into all of that and how do you best use Tyrese Maxey, because it feels like he's sort of feeling his way through this stuff. We'll dig into all that when we come back. He's Derek. I'm Rob. Barrett's off today. We're Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. All right, let's talk about Pro Action Restoration. Pro Action Restoration are the folks that you reach out to if your home, your business, a property that you may own goes through the pain, the inconvenience, the difficulty of water, fire, smoke, mold damage. Pro Action Restoration is on call 24 hours, 7 days a week to assist. I can tell you that personally because I called them on a Saturday, and guess what? Somebody answered the phone, right? And they got right out to my parents' house, and they cleaned up the mess, and it was a mess. And they cleaned it up. The crew was professional. The price was right. It was a big sigh of relief for everybody involved. They are licensed, bonded, fully insured. They've been serving the tri-state area for more than 2 decades. Pro Action Restoration will work in conjunction with your insurance company. So again, if it's water, if it's fire, if it's smoke, if it's mold damage, you name it, they can handle it. Give them a call, 610-623-3760, 610-623-3760, or online at proactionrestoration.com. That's proactionrestoration.com.